Now the most important thing with which I'll start is, let me tell you what I will not speak about. I repeat, let me first tell you what I will not speak about. We have heard a lot about what the IPCC says. We have seen a lot of cut-paste information on the slides, about all kinds of projections. This is something which I will not definitely speak about. On the other hand, I will make use of these 9 minutes to be able to very quickly share some very interesting insights I bring to this presentation, not by myself. I have just been part of a wonderful team. Several of my colleagues are seated here, and I can very quickly tell you there are 2 others. One is Shalin Shah, who would sit here at this corner, and he is working on the summary of the recommendations which have been made. Shalin, will you please raise your hand? Then we have Darshana Patel here. Darshana Patel is an environment engineer, and why am I introducing these 2 people along with me? And the third one, Narayan Patel, you have been seeing run around. The uniqueness of this team is something which you will see, and that is, they have been part of another interesting protocol which is called the Montreal Protocol for protection of the ozone layer for the last 15 years. They've been working on these aspects for 15 years. Now, based on that, there are some interesting insights which I'm going to present over the next 7 minutes. Right? Now, what are these interesting insights? I have been interacting with quite a few of the experts, and thanks to Hegde, and then I spoke with Hariharan, who's here, and then of course Mukul Asher, and our person from the Shaw Foundation. And in this process, I realized that there are some unanswered questions. There are some unanswered questions when we are trying to tackle the climate change issue. And what are these unanswered questions? Is it really possible to transform a global agenda into targeted local action? Number 2, are there any parallels from such initiatives from anywhere in the world which can be made use of here? The daring answer is yes. And how am I saying this? Yes. There are 3 interesting principles on which the Montreal Protocol has been working, and they provide very interesting lessons for us. When I am raising a point, I will also raise a question, and I would expect an answer from the audience. This will ensure that we interact and we deliver together. How many of us are familiar with something called the CAP, C-A-P of the Montreal Protocol? Have you heard of this before? What is the CAP of the Montreal Protocol?
It's a cap on the emission of greenhouse gases and other pollutions.
Thank you, brother. Great. Your presentation this morning was as inspiring can be. But this was a special reference to CAP, the CAP on the Montreal Protocol. The Montreal Protocol has got an interesting mechanism, and that is called the Compliance Assistance Program. Please mark this. It's called the Compliance Assistance Program. What is the uniqueness of this Compliance Assistance Program? The Compliance Assistance Program is something which handholds the stakeholders. The Montreal Protocol has said we need to phase out chemicals. But the Compliance Assistance Program is something which helps the countries, which helps street corner stakeholders on 2 things. To know the alternatives and how to use the alternatives. Do we have a comparable mechanism in the case of climate change initiatives? I think this is a very important lesson which we can learn. And how does the Compliance Assistance Program work? That is the second important lesson for our activities on climate change mitigation. The Compliance Assistance Program is supported by a very interesting body of experts which is called the TEAP. How many of us are familiar with the TEAP? I'm sure you would like to know what is the TEAP. The TEAP is the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel. It's called the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel. What is the job of this panel, Mandavan? The job of this panel is to look at alternatives which are available all over the world and look at problems which are location and country specific and propose a menu of activities by which the alternatives can be conveniently integrated into daily lives. This is a very, very important learning for activities on climate change. Do we have that kind of a comparable mechanism here? The answer is a big no. Now, where do we get the courage to talk about all this? I mentioned to you about Narayan Patel, and Kirit Shelat and others would like to know, as most of us here. Supposing I tell you that Narayan Patel has trained more than 5,000 refrigeration air conditioning technicians in the state of Gujarat in street corners. And what did he train them on? On the use of alternatives. How to recover ozone depleting substances. How to make sure that they are not released into the ozone layer. I think these are all very clear actionable points on which we will be able to draw a parallel in our initiatives on climate change. However, at the end of the presentation, the translation was just for 5 seconds. The American was shocked. He said, "What is this?" He said, "Sir, I have completed the translation." Then our American had to make the second presentation, and the translation was again for 5 seconds. And the third presentation also got over, and there was tremendous claps. And then our American friend asked the Japanese, "What did you translate?" The first translation said, "Our American friend has not spoken anything new." Please follow. What was the second translation? The second translation said, "I don't expect him to say anything new in the third session." And what was the third one, which is most important for all of us? The third translation said, "I was absolutely correct. There's nothing new in what he said." Now, the point is, do we want to face the predicament here? Climate change is not going to wait for us to be talking about things which we know. We need action. And I must do my duty to the conference team. The conference team may have bungled here and there in terms of logistics, but let me tell you, the leadership which has been brought by the organizers here is enormous. And what is that leadership? That leadership is to answer one question. What is the unfinished agenda? Let us talk about the unfinished agenda, and I am confident we will all meet again as part of action in the future, provided we follow our conscience. Thank you very much.